kill you and make money than help you and not make money.
What's shaking? Welcome back to All In. I'm your host, Rick Jordan. And, usually this is like super high energy when I come in if you listen to the show all the time. And while I'm still high energy, you might notice a bit more of a serious tone in my voice today, because we're going to dive into some serious things. And you're going to want to share this out, because this is going to pull the veil back on a lot of things today. And you're going to want to share this out with as many people as you can, because this is going to help a lot of people the more we get the word out about these things. You know how I feel about human trafficking. You know how I feel about the great country of America, the United States that we live in. You know how I feel about human rights. And today we're going to talk about all of that. I've got a dude on who we're going to have a very real conversation, real talk, because his mission has been to expose the forced organ harvesting of a Falun Gong spiritual movement in China for the past 21 years. And he's also a veteran activist, which is huge. I really appreciate his heart on this. Nicholas Gerber, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rick. It's a pleasure to be with you, brother. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Man, I'm fired up, and I'm also a little apprehensive, because these kinds of things, we almost went down this road in conversation, then we decided to hit record, because I started talking about the dance, right? And I know as you were working with Ryan, the producer, before the show, he was saying how, I've been banned on Instagram, and, there's a movie that I came out with last year, Liberty Lockdown, around government overreach in the United States with the pandemic. And that movie itself was completely banned from Netflix and Amazon because it was classified as hate speech under their terms and conditions.
And that's how epic and legendary it really is.
Yeah, you got it, brother. So I appreciate your mission, because we're doing the same thing. Just
those are the feathers stick together.
You got it. We're bringing truth into the world, brother. So let's do a little more of that today. Is that cool?
Absolutely, man. It's the Jedi against the Sith. It's the battle between good and evil. I'm glad to be with you, brother.
I appreciate the Star Wars reference too, man. It's the Enterprise versus the Klingons. There we go.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's awesome, man. So last year, because there was a lot as I filmed this movie, and we can dive this way, because the Falun Gong, I would love to hear your take. How would you describe them?
They are a spiritual movement. I have a clip for you, if I can play it, just
Please.
briefly.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, listen to the whole thing. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever, but then go to YouTube afterwards and check out these clips too. So let's hear it, man.
Yeah. Damn right, man, because I just bought these clips to take you on a nice little journey. But before I play it, Rick, this Falun Gong, it's quite a beautiful, an amazing spiritual movement. The reason I got into it is because I was partying a lot in college. I was manning a lot of leadership positions. I was interning at a prestigious investment firm. My father put a lot of money on me, and I was stressed out. I had a lot of anxiety, and I needed some kind of relief. Jimi Hendrix, like, I can't get no relief. There's too much confusion. You know what I mean? It's the Joker to the thief. You know what I mean? He's famous all along the Watchtower. So I was feeling crappy and down, and I needed some, boost. So I'm a heavy lifter. I like to lift. I like to do martial arts. I've been heavy into Bruce Lee. I did some yoga. I did some Tai Chi, and I like that. But I wanted something more just relaxed and natural. I just felt something more just organic. Not to say that they're not, but there's more of a regiment to it. And I just want something natural. I am a believer in the Creator. I come from a Jewish faith from South Africa, then an American citizen. The only reason I was born in South Africa is because my family that was slaughtered in the Holocaust in Lithuania and Hungary, what was left of them, fled to South Africa. I was born. And then I moved to America, into Atlanta, Georgia, in the South. And I came across this human rights festival, this arts and crafts festival in 2001 when I was studying international business at the University of Georgia, Rick. And I just was led to this practice by a friend of mine from New York. He's like, yo, take a look at that. What's up with that? You like that kind of shit? Take a look. Excuse my language. I hope we don't have to swear.
No, you like that kind of shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. So I'm just being real. So I was like, yeah, it's very intriguing. So I went out with a buddy of mine, and they were doing these slow moving exercises that I came to learn with Falun Gong from China, these slow moving exercises. And in a moment, I'll play the clip to just give you a little bit of a visual. 5 exercises to unblock the energy channels. And I was like, yeah, let me give it a try. Is it something religious? Is it cultish? Is it something, because I don't want any of that nonsense. I just want to have a little bit of a outlet in my life, a little release, man,
Yeah.
Sure, no problem. So I went into the garden or the grounds of the university at that time, and I was doing these exercises. And immediately, Rick, when I started to do this, and I'm a skeptic, I'm a cynic, man. I don't just take on anything, because when I do, I put my heart, my soul, my spirit, and my entire mind to it. You know what I mean? That's how winning is done. Yeah. All in, baby, all in. Yeah. So I was like, okay, let me try to fix this out. So I was like, whoa, like what the flip is going on with my body? Like in such a short period of time, I felt these energy channels, or these just pop, these bubbles like of stress, seriously, all of them down my back, down my shoulders, in my legs. I was like, what? Outside of my thighs. I was like, wow, this is quite profound. I feel very relaxed. My whole body started to warm up. I just felt very relieved. I could breathe better. So I was like, I want some more of this shit, man. Yeah. So I go back to the booth, and there's about 10 Chinese people, could hardly speak a word of English. This guy from Hong Kong comes up to me. He was like, here's the flyer. And I was like, Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, mind and body practice. And I was like, well, I've tried it out. I liked it. I felt good. But what the hell is this? All that uncomfortableness just creeped me out left my body, and then this creepy shock of like disgust came over me, and I was like, what the hell is going on? Stop the torture of these people, stop the brutal persecution of the Falun Gong in China. What is this? This is like two worlds, that like one world is heaven and one world is hell. So I was like, okay, let's sit back for a moment, breathe, and let's find out what's going on. So I realized that this spiritual movement has become the largest movement in China, outlawed, and then they started to kill them for their organs, all under the command of the CCP. So before I continue, let me share with you just what the exercises are, and then I'd like to play for you about a 2-minute clip of the award-winning documentary, Hard to Believe, that shows this confirmed slaughter that is going on in China today. That's the reason why I came on your show.
Yeah, let's play it, man. This practice is outlawed by the CCP, right? The Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah. For almost 25 years now.
Wow. Why is that? I know you're going to play the video, but why is it outlawed?
There's 3 reasons. It became the largest spiritual movement in all of China. And one out of 13 Chinese national citizens were practicing Falun Gong by that time. And one out of 13 national citizens was about 100 million people by 1998. And the Chinese Communist Party didn't like that. The Communist Party hated the fact that over 30 million people, more than its membership, were practicing this ancient spiritual movement in China, and basically outlawed it. And not only outlawed it, but was killing them for their organs. I'll just play it while I share with you. Those are the exercises of Falun Gong. There are 5 in total. Tremendous. It's like just moving all the energy, standing. This more of an endurance exercise to enhance vitality and spiritual wisdom and make your body feel amazing after practicing. And the whole philosophy of it is truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. And that's why another reason why the Chinese Communist Party outlawed Falun Gong, because the diabolical nature of the Chinese Communist Party compared to Falun Gong or Judaism or Christianity or any spiritual practices is more of a compassionate, loving, and tolerant feeling and lifestyle. So also, not to mention the 5,000 years of Chinese culture that was wiped out by the Chinese Communist Party. Falun Gong, and this man, the founder of Falun Gong, Mr. Li, revived that culture that the CCP intentionally destroyed, decimated, and wiped out. 5,000 years of culture, Rick, completely wiped out. Wow. So this man, Mr. Li, revived the culture, and as you can see, just started to teach 200 students, and within about 8 years, it mushroomed to become the largest spiritual movement in China. More than half of upper class society were practicing in China. This is actually Chinese. I mean, look at how many Chinese people. This is just in one setting alone. Millions upon people were practicing this spiritual movement in China.
Is Mr. Lee still alive?
Yes, he is. He is in New York right now. I'm not sure where or anything, but yeah, he has a daughter, he has a wife, he owns a business, and he just wanted to teach something. Let me see if I've... there we
so
go.
he's in the United States. Did he come over here for safety?
Yes, but he has a bounty on his head for about $500 million.
I was going to say, because if he's such a threat to the CCP, I mean, the best way to approach that is to eliminate the threat, right? So it's amazing what he's been able to accomplish. But I look at this as like, this guy has got to have something, like people looking over his shoulder, sneaking up behind him, just a price on his head.
I mean, Rick, what I'm about to share with you next is something that is a new form of evil. I mean, we've heard of harvesting of organs, and we've heard of kidney in the bathtub stories, but this is something that is preposterous. And I know that there's other organizations and harvesting that's going on in the world, but under the Chinese Communist Party, a reign of terror, Rick, that's wiped out over 100 million people, decimated 5,000 years of Chinese culture, and is now sending hundreds and thousands of Falun Gong practitioners, as well as Uyghur Muslims, Tibetans, and Christians to state-mandated hospitals commanded by the Chinese military and the highest-ranking gangsters of the Chinese Communist Party, President Hu Jintao, President Xi, President Jiang Zemin, the head of the Communist Party in 1999. Sending these people, Falun Gong, in cattle cars, just like the Nazis did with the Jews, to state-mandated hospitals, between 2,000 to 3,000 of them, over 250 concentration camps in China called the Laogao system, and over 36 death camps, cutting out their organs while alive, while the blood is still flowing, a little sedation. So they don't have to, so false soldiers don't have to hold them down. So they can cut the doctors. They're turning into murderers, cutting the organs out like a lobster in a grotesque restaurant. You just take it out and you just cut all the organs out: the corneas, the livers, the pancreas, even the skin. Cremate the bodies, then sell the organs within a couple of days, a couple of weeks, reducing waiting times of 4 to 8 years for hearts and 2 years for livers, for example, in a matter of days and weeks, and then fueling this multi-billion-dollar business. So I'd love to share the clip just to get a little visual.
Yeah, I've got questions, Roll Man. Let's see the clip first, please.
Man,
Goodness.
It's an honor to be on your show, Rick, man. I tell you, I've been around, man. I've been around, and like I told Ryan, you guys are the real deal, and you're the next pioneer of news and podcasts, because this wokeism and this radical leftism and this beta cuck society, weak men are no longer needed in leadership positions. Strong, powerful, decisive men who love their country, love their families, love their women, and believe in their creator are going to run this world in a good, decent, upright, and righteous way.
Amen to that.
Once again, brother, the return of the Jedi is imminent. But right now, we are in the revenge of the Sith. I tell you right, I shit you not, bro. But let me tell you, let me play this clip if I may, and we'll get the party started. Here we go. Can you hear it?
No, there's no sound on this. I can see it.
Sorry, hold on. I didn't have the volume up. Sorry. Okay,
no problem.
Here we go.
One of the worst crimes in history began taking place in hospitals throughout the country as organ transplants suddenly began to skyrocket.
We've been asked to investigate allegations that there has been harvesting of organs of Falun Gong in China. Our bottom line conclusion, after considering everything as best we could, was that the allegations are true.
I began conducting comprehensive interviews with medical professionals, Chinese law enforcement personnel, and over 50 refugees from the Laogai system. But I estimate that 65,000 Falun Gong were murdered for their organs from 2000 to 2008.
Essentially what organ harvesting means is they're taking Falun Gong practitioners literally like cattle, holding them in prison camps, testing their blood and other vital organs, and when someone comes into the country that needs a heart, a liver, a kidney, they find a match, they take the Falun Gong practitioner, extract their organs, of course killing them in the process.
people who are expecting this to sort of just be solved naturally by all we have to do is sit back and they'll fix it, this is wrong. The West has to take a role. And the one role the West can do is say, these are our values. We cannot go beyond this. There are certain lines we can't cross. This is a red line. That's an absolute red line.
Enver Tohti, the surgeon turned bus driver, says it's been 20 years since he removed the organs from that live prisoner. It remains a mystery why so few people have ever heard about the thing he says he cannot forget.
This is my experience. This is a real true story. If you keep silence, this tragedy will continue. And people, they just don't want to touch this evil. Because if you touch this evil, maybe at the end of the day, you may not be able to tackle this the consequences. That is my guess.
My God.
That's the award-winning documentary, Hard to Believe, an 18 award-winning documentary. And that's Dr. Enver Tohti, the surgeon who I bring on the show. I brought him on Steve Bannon, where Bannon pressed me for the names of all the Western politicians on live, where millions of people are watching, same as Alex Jones and Stu Peters and others. And I wouldn't give the names because I want these people, as the doctor was saying, it's risky business, number one. I got death threats after that. And, you know, our offices got shut down, and I'm 200 miles away from the Chinese border right now, Rick. You know, I walk the walk, as you do. That's why I think we vibe very well and connect very well. But yeah, he shared about his testimony, cutting out the organs forced by the CCP at an execution ground. And now he said how Dr. Enver Tohti, the surgeon in 1995, who was forced to do a forced organ harvesting and then fled to become a bus driver, as you saw in London. Yeah. He said that the execution grounds now are in the theater of the surgery hospitals. So they're performing these medical transplant surgeries to cut out their organs and murder these people, the Falun Gong, to fuel a multi-billion-dollar business.
My God. I look at this and I know my history pretty well, you know, worldwide history. And you talk about, you know, the Nazis with the Jewish internment camps. And I've been to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. And when I walked in there, the room that really gripped me was seeing all of the, I don't know if you've been there or not, but there's a room that's in the Holocaust Museum. There's an aisle right down the middle of it and to both sides, because the aisle, it has glass barriers on it. And it's stacked up high about 4 feet of shoes that went through the incinerator that were not there to represent all the people that were cremated, just like you're talking right here, in the incinerators back in Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
It's freaking, it was genocide then, and I believe that's what I'm looking at here. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. This is a new form of evil. State-sanctioned kill-to-order murder. Genocide, a cold genocide versus a hot genocide. Hot genocides are like what happened in Rwanda when the Hutu regime hacked 10,000 or 80,000 people, Tutsis a day. And I got to listen to a testimony of a Tutsi survivor who said she had to flee all over. Her family was killed. They just were hunted down. A cold genocide, Rick, is normalizing the genocide into the society. So institutionalizing it, okay? And the best way I can relate it in the States is the Planned Parenthood. They have murdered, not institutionally, intentionally, as their founder, Margaret Sanger, a eugenicist, founded Planned Parenthood to wipe out the Negro in her words, but the black population. And since 1973, 19 million black babies have been aborted on purpose. This is black genocide. So it relates. And now University of Pittsburgh has been caught just recently harvesting black baby body parts while alive, funded by Ouchie Fauci, Dr. Fauci, and the NIH. Now imagine that. They run a massive child trafficking, pedophilia, human trafficking, organ harvesting rings. And it's unbelievable. When John McAfee was alive, he shared about this as well. A lot of them we have the names of serious Western politicians, world leaders, serious pedophiles, serious child traffickers. I mean, you can believe. I'm sure your audience can believe. But a lot of people think I'm a nut job. I mean, I've just compiled 50 pieces of reports and evidence confirming that the bioweapon that we're experiencing now was from the Wuhan lab. And what's coming out recently? New evidence on the leaks that possibly the Chinese Communist Party man-made the so-called coronavirus in their Wuhan lab. Well, of course they did. We've been talking about this for years.
Yeah, okay. I know. I remember that breaking story a couple months ago too, and it was, all the conspiracy theories around that. All of a sudden, it's like, oh wait, there's validity to these, which a lot of people believed to begin with, and a lot of people didn't believe. The one thing that really gripped me about that video you played, brother, is because I saw the date on that, right, and it looked like it was a Senate hearing in 2012. And I'm looking at that, and you see we've got Facebook, right? We remember Mark Zuckerberg when he had his Senate hearing, and the room was freaking packed, the standing room only for Zuckerberg. But here we are talking about genocide, and there's nobody there. There's not even a full panel of senators.
Nobody there. And I tell you, and I'll share with you, I'm glad you brought up the Holocaust, because 60 years ago, and I wanted to share with you, this is from the World Organization to Investigate the Persecution of Falun Gong. 60 years ago, when Felix Frankfurter, a U.S. Supreme Court judge of the Jewish faith, heard that the Nazis were slaughtering Jewish people in the concentration camps, as you just visited, his first reaction was, a visualization of it. But his first reaction was, I can't believe this is true. American society reacted to the Holocaust, believed the unbelievable. Rick, even my own grandmother of the Jewish faith couldn't believe it when she saw it. She couldn't believe that this was going on. And what's interesting is that one woman from the Weimar Republic, about 3 or 4 miles away from the Buchenwald concentration camp, one of the concentration camps where I don't know, tens of thousands of Jews were murdered, there were people living. And when the U.S. soldiers liberated the camps and they visited the towns that were 3 to 5 miles away from the concentration camps, they asked the people, don't you know that this is going on? And one woman even accused the U.S. military of fabricating the pictures to vilify Germany. And some even demanded an answer. If such a horrific thing is happening around us, how come we have no idea of it? So the U.S. soldiers had no choice but to send these people to the death camps and say, hey, take a look. But the see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil mentality, Rick, the cowardliness, the conspiracy, the collusion, the alignment with the CCP to make massive amounts of money. This is a multi-billion-dollar business, Rick. It's so sick that a trained assassin once shared, I meet a couple of interesting guys. When I was on the Alex Jones show, and I'll share this quote in a moment, extinction before a loss of profit. They'd rather kill you and make money than help you and not make money. This is what's going on right now. Sure. And think about it. Why would they? And anyway, we can get into the vaccine and ivermectin and all that long. We can talk for hours on this, but let's stay in context right now with the organ harvesting. Yeah. But I can tell you, I've seen some very interesting things in my life. I've been contacted with interesting people, and I deal with interesting people for 21 years, exposing this evil. But people. Oh yeah, is that going on? Is that really going on? The World Health Organization, the United Nations turning their back, saying nothing. Oh yeah, we know about the Falun Gong issue. Okay, yeah, we'll pass resolutions. Okay, whatever. The Secretary of State will come out. The Department of Justice will come out. Oh yeah, it's Falun Gong this and Falun Gong that. But nothing ever gets done. As you see in the Congress, blank, nobody there.
Yeah. So you've been following this for 21 years now. How long has this really been going on? It's longer than that, I would assume.
As early as 1995 and even earlier. But it ramped up with the Falun Gong, because when Falun Gong became the largest spiritual movement in China, Rick, and ailments, injuries, illnesses, brother. I tell you, we're all just vanishing. People, you can call it miracles, you can call it just a life force, you can call it an evolution of health and longevity and spiritual vitality. The Chinese Communist Party was seeing this. That's why the number of people that were practicing Falun Gong, 1 out of every 12 Chinese national citizens, more than half of upper class society, the entire
wow.
It's the 7 highest ranking officials and their families of the Communist Party were practicing. Military were all practicing. So they saw this massive evolution of healthiness coming to their shores. So they targeted Falun Gong to eradicate it and kill these people for their organs. But I think the next clip, if I may, will light on that. Yeah. This is also from Hard to Believe documentary, and it's called The World Needs to Know. Here we go.
One of the worst crimes in history began taking place in hospitals throughout the country as organ transplants suddenly began to skyrocket.
We've been asked to investigate allegations that...
this is the one we just played, right?
Forgive me. I get so carried on in the conversation that it's
no, dude, I appreciate your fire, man.
Thank you, brother. Let's see. Here we go. This is it.
By 2000, Falun Gong practitioners were disappearing into labor camps in mass numbers. At the same time, Chinese hospitals began promoting their organ transplant expertise.
I'm David Matus, and with me is David Kilgore.
Now, before I continue, Rick, these are the 2 gentlemen in 2006 that confirmed 18 pieces of evidence that this was going on between 2001 and 2006. Between 45,000 and 65,000 Falun Gong practitioners were harvested and murdered for their organs.
So they're American
We've
lawyers,
been asked
right?
to invest.
They are from Canada. The man that's talking is a 35-year international human rights lawyer in Winnipeg, David Matus. And the gentleman holding the documents standing beside him is David Kilgore, a Crown prosecutor and former Secretary of State of the Asian Affairs of the Canadian Parliament.
Can I ask some questions around these guys? Because they were in the previous clip. They said that they were commissioned. Now, they're Canadian, but who are they commissioned by to investigate this?
The Coalition to Investigate the Persecution of Falun Gong. They aren't paid, and they're not Falun Gong practitioners themselves, and they're independent investigators that have formed a coalition to investigate the persecution of Falun Gong. And then with their report, they have come out to expose this to the world.
Wow.
And the other guy, Ethan Gutman, who you saw in London Bridge, you're smoking a cigarette, just sitting there. We have to draw a line. We cannot cross that line. He wrote the book, The Slaughter, and he joined forces with the 2 gentlemen, David Kilgore and David Matus, and now they have about at least 52 pieces of evidence confirmed. And in one of the clips I'll play later in the interview, or in the discussion, I would even say, epic, legendary, historic broadcast that we're having today, you'll see the China Tribunal, and that's even more evidence between 2018 and 2019 that this is going on. So for all the skeptics out there and the cynics, I love them because they push me to confirm the evidence. But once they accept it, after questioning, if you can get the skeptics on board, you can get anybody on board.
Yeah, so right on.
Here we go.
Allegations that there has been harvesting of organs of Falun Gong in China. David Kilgore is a former member of Parliament and former cabinet minister for Asia Pacific, and I'm a Winnipeg lawyer doing immigration, refugee, and international human rights law in Winnipeg. And we have now done our investigation, and we're producing this report. And I didn't know whether it was true or not, and so my task initially was to try to figure out a way of approaching the issue so that I could either prove it or disprove it and not just walk away and say, I don't know.
The number of executions in China varied widely depending on who was counting. But Matus says no matter which number he used, the number of executions and the number of organs didn't add up.
The transplant volumes increased substantially after the persecution of Falun Gong began. And I mean, there's a lot of other evidence, but the most likely explanation for the increase is the Falun Gong. We pursued every investigative trail we could find. In the report, you will see that there are 18 different avenues of proof and disproof we considered and evaluated. Our bottom line conclusion after considering everything as best we could was that the allegations are true. We believe them to be true, that this harvesting is indeed happening.
Matus says what made Falun Gong organs especially attractive.
Now, I want to share with you one thing in your audience, Rick, in a moment. You're going to hear a telephone conversation from a Chinese doctor with an investigator disguised as a buyer looking for Falun Gong organs. It's quite profound. The investigators had about 17 telephone conversations in 12 different hospitals with the presidents, the top surgeons, the medical directors, all saying, yeah, we have fresh Falun Gong organs, just like a wet market. If you go to Philippines or Cambodia or Vietnam, or even a fish market, and you can you say I choose that lobster, I want to eat that lobster, I want to eat that squid. They take it out of the tank, they cut it all open for you, and it's like, here we go. Wow. So you're going to hear something quite disturbing. Here we go.
Was the practitioner's healthy lifestyle. They do not drink or smoke. On many of the recordings of phone calls made to more than 100 Chinese hospitals, doctors assure callers that transplant organs are from healthy Falun Gong practitioners.
都是那种健康的法轮功是吧？健康的法轮功。对，肯定是学好的才能做完，因为这种东西都要保证质量的。那是都要像你们都要到监狱去自己去挑选是吧？对，肯定。
Just got pick 'em.
Wow.
Like models of a tree, like apples of a tree.
They'd go to the prison, which are really these internment camps for the Falun Gong, and find the healthiest that would be a match for whatever need they need, a heart, kidneys, whatever, and then just pick them out and chop out their organs.
Exactly. Blood testing, forcefully blood testing at these hospitals, line them all up, take them out of the prison systems and the concentration camps and the re-education centers, because you round it all up. This is banned in China, Rick. You are not allowed to practice Falun Gong, and if you are caught, you are sent to a labor camp where your organs are cut out of your bodies while alive. They have been targeted. And what's so sick is that, and even more diabolic and more crazy, is that the former president, Jiang Zemin of China, in 1999, he was the president of the Chinese Communist Party. He outlawed Falun Gong. He was the first one. He created the 610 office on June 10th, 1999, 1 month before the complete ban of Falun Gong, just like the Nazis did with the Jews. They created the Gestapo. The Chinese Communist Party henchmen created the 610 office on June 10th. That sits still to this day with President Xi, President Hu Jintao for at least 3 decades now, nearly 30 years. On top of the Chinese Communist Party, controlling all economic, social, and political parties and policies. Well, there's one party, but policies, I mean.
Yeah.
For one purpose and one purpose only, to destroy Falun Gong and eradicate them within 3 months as raw materials to fuel this multi-billion-dollar business. But it's been surviving for 21 years now. Unbelievable courage of the Falun Gong. Unbelievable.
That's awesome. It's a little bit hard, even with Nazi Germany, man, look what happened, right? Because it got to a certain point, and now this is what's going in my head. It's like, one, why hasn't there been anything to stop this yet? Except, for private organizations to commission an attorney and a former member of parliament to go investigate. Of course, there's a Senate hearing also from 2012, so people are talking about it, but it reminds me a lot of really from World War II, because for the longest time, America would not get involved in the war. While this genocide was happening over in Europe, slaughtering Jews just for being them, literally just for being them, so that was racial persecution, of course, racial genocide. And now we're seeing spiritual genocide because just the way that they decide to conduct their lives, which is a very peaceful way. But both of these, look at how many Jewish individuals existed in Germany and then in those sections of Europe, because there were so many that it was a threat to power. And this is always the case, right? Because here you see something that's a movement with the Falun Gong that I see as a threat to power with the CCP. Because it's like when you have a regime, and you see this throughout the course of history, when you have a regime, and especially something in the case of the CCP, because how many people are there in China? Over 1 billion people in China. How many people are actually part of the CCP? What's the last number that you heard?
60 million, I believe.
So around 60, right? Yeah, exactly. So you're talking, and I knew it was roughly around 5%. So you have 5% that are part of the CCP, and those are ones that have actually sworn allegiance to that, right? Not the ones that are actually within the organization itself, like actual soldiers or leadership or anything like that. It's individuals, just like you can identify as a Republican or a Democrat in the United States on your ballots. That's what I'm talking about here, is that you just check a box, and in China it's a little bit more concrete, and soul snatching is when you say, okay, I'm pledging myself to the CCP. That's 60 million people. The actual body of government itself is much, much less than that. But you have 1 billion people. So let's just say 95% of people in China are not part of the CCP. Imagine if just a fraction of those rose up, but that's literally what you're talking about right here.
Exactly. I want to actually up that number. 380 million people have withdrawn from the CCP. When you nailed it, Rick. The 60 million, I don't know, 100 million Falun Gong practitioners outnumber the Chinese Communist Party by 30 million people. But when you are born in China, you have to swear, as you said, bloody allegiance to the Chinese Communist Party. With 380 million people, according to Tribunal, which is the global Quit the CCP campaign that's been going on since at least 2004, have managed to withdraw, just revolt against the CCP, disconnect all ties to the CCP and all its affiliations, at least 380 million people. So that's even more than 60 million, by the way. I don't know why I said 60. It's a little bit late here, but those are the actual numbers. So forgive me for that. I just had to correct myself. 380 million withdrawn. That's still 1.3 billion. But the amount of, you got the henchmen, which are fighting between each other. They're incredibly weak, but they have the military on their side, and they have the mind control as well. But because so many people, between 50 and 80,000 Chinese people a day are withdrawing, those are the actual numbers, by the way, that have had enough of the CCP, are withdrawing. So the more people that expand, as your point, and I want to go on your point, that the more people there are, it only is a matter of time for the CCP to collapse. And that brings my relation to what is going on in China to America. Now you're getting forced mandates. You're getting vaccine passports. You can't ride the buses like in Canada. So what is going to happen when the Americans are now losing their jobs? They're losing their freedoms. They're losing their custody over their children because you won't take this biojab that has been even the CCP technology has been put into the biojabs, by the way, and the actual bioweapon has been man-made in the Wuhan lab, which is all coming out now. Just recent articles come out today, sharing about this, and people having talks about it.
Some of the similarities are interesting too, because I interviewed a gentleman who runs the largest Chinese American radio show in San Francisco, and actually in the entire United States. He has the largest radio show. And when I was interviewing him for the film last year, he was explaining to me how the CCP even controls the flow of information. Because you're talking, all of this is about control. It's about power. It's about control. And you're also talking about the similarities between what's going on right now and communism at its core. Right?
Exactly.
Yes. What's going on in America right now is very similar to some communistic practices. And one thing that connected the dots for me when I was interviewing him is he said that there are, and this hits home for me because I'm in the field of technology, the only way that you could hear current events in China is every single morning there would be loudspeakers on the streets. And it would be the CCP that would broadcast what the current events are. So you would have filtered. Yes.
Right now.
Right on. Same in Vietnam. You would have filtered information about what's going on around the world and in your country. And what really freaked me out a couple weeks ago, man, is when when Biden's press secretary came on and said, we're working with Facebook, we're working with Twitter, we're working with social media to ban certain posts, to censor certain posts. And really, it was around it was around the pandemic. That's what they were talking about. And it's under the guise of good, right? They're saying we don't want misinformation to get out there, but it was things because the only thing that I could see that was in common is that they were just opposing viewpoints. And they were saying, because this is not the administration's agenda, this isn't the rhetoric that we're putting out that we want Americans to hear. Hello, loudspeakers from the street. It's the same freaking thing as communism, saying we're going to work with big tech so that information, anybody else's opinion, anybody else's viewpoint, any other piece of factual data, the truth that goes against our agenda and the information that we want to put out there, we're going to make sure that nobody sees that, hears that ever. It's the same thing.
Nails, brother. Fucking nails. Excuse my language, but wow. And you know what? They are guilty by the burden of proof that they are committing this atrocity of covering up the truth and causing innocent people to die. And this is what is going on. And demonizing ivermectin. We better not have that on because you might have to edit it out because you'll be probably banned from YouTube, as I have been. You can't even say a prayer anymore for the vaccinated who have got this bioweapon inside them. Okay, and it goes really deep. But all the evidence, like I said, Rick, I've compiled 50 pieces of evidence. I'm an investigative journalist of the Jewish faith. I love Falun Gong. I love Christianity. I love Judaism. I don't care who you are. I care about the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. And to fail to support what is good and to fail to expose what is evil is unacceptable. We do not tolerate rude behavior.
Yeah.
When I went on a child trafficking raid with special operators who contacted me after going on Alex Jones, and they're like, we like your work, we've seen what you're doing, come with us, I want to show you our work. So we went and we rescued 15 women and children. And this little 5-year-old, I'll never forget, was cellophaned up, wrapped up, had a blindfold and a gagged in her mouth, and she was shivering. I took out the gag, take off the blindfold, and she just looks at me. I cut the cellophane, I bring her up, and I just hold her, and she stops shaking and says, "We tortured this guy, cut him a little bit, didn't kill him, but I watched him do it just to get out of him the information, and he ended up dead in the Red River the next day." Because his higher-ups had to cut the ties, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but we rescued these children and we sent them to the Blue Dragon or another organization who do phenomenal work on the human trafficking and the child trafficking, because they steal all the children and they sell them to the Chinese mafia and the Vietnamese mafia. They work together, the triads, you name it, whatever they're called nowadays. And big business, big money. Same thing is going on with the Falun Gong, the Uyghur Muslims, the House Christians, the Tibetans. And 95% of the organs from the Falun Gong are coming, or the organ trade is coming from the Falun Gong. Skyrocketing organ tourist rates, money-making central, man, a multi-billion-dollar business, 150,000. Look, I mean, Rick, if I may, let me just share this with you.
Yeah.
The evidence, and I want to share my screen with you, so people can take a look at it, and you can actually see the statistics.
As you're pulling that up, yeah, of course. As you're pulling that up, the one difference, because we've been making a lot of comparisons to Nazi Germany, and during World War II, during that time period in our world's history, and there's one big difference that I want to call out, because I keep thinking in my head, it's like, what's it going to take? What's it going to take to get other countries involved in this and actually put a stop in this for good, to say no more to the evil? And back then, I feel that really the thing that happened is, and this is the difference, is that the genocide back in the 30s and 40s, the 1930s and 40s from the Third Reich, they did not keep it within their sovereign borders. They decided to push their limits and then started invading other countries across Europe because they were on this purge. They were on this Aryan purge, and they started spreading out. Right now, I could see why it's a little easier for people to say, oh, out of sight, out of mind, because this is happening just within the borders of China, correct?
For now.
I know, exactly. That's what I'm saying, is I keep thinking in my head, what's it going to take? And that could be what it takes, is when there is no more for now, when it is right now, when they expand past their borders.
But what's crazy is that in America, there's also institutionalized organ harvesting, dealing with the Planned Parenthood and the 19 million baby that have been aborted since 1973. But now the University of Pittsburgh, that has been funded by Fauci and the NIH, are harvesting live black baby body parts. This has been going on, but this has also been covered up. And David Daleiden exposed Planned Parenthood for harvesting body parts, baby body parts, to the biotech firms and other sick people around this. And the pedophilia and the human trafficking and the child trafficking. Don't even get me started. But there's a massive business. I mean, look what Epstein came out. You got the royal family with Jimmy Savile, Prince Charles, Prince Edward. Listen, we have very sick, twisted, high-ranking, powerful elites in this world that feed off the innocence of children, sexualize our communities, are mandating kill shots beyond. With toxic poisons like graphene oxide, with the CCP technology downloaded into their freaking genetic algorithmic patterns of the Moderna virus, etc., etc. Now you're definitely going to get suspended and banned from YouTube.
Well, I'm looking at your numbers here, right, on how much these organs go for, when they're harvested this way. And there's something else that's standing out. I mean, because you can see a heart's anywhere from 130,000 to 160,000. Kidney and pancreas combo is 150K, right? Lung is around 150K too. But I'm seeing on the right-hand side there that you've got, the United States has 130 hospitals specializing in liver transplant surgery, right? And fewer than 244 kidney transplant centers. And I see in China, there were, looks like over 1,000 hospitals engaged in organ transplant surgeries. And
yet, look.
Yet there was no voluntary organ donation system. My God. Because if there's 1 billion people in China and there's around 330 million people in the United States, there's roughly 3 times as many people in China. Are you following with me on the math so far? So if there's 130 hospitals, right, we should have probably, in comparison, around 500 hospitals, if that's the case, something like that, to be a third. But yet we're running way below that. So that what other way, and I realize this is conjecture, but it follows all the data points so far, that this is obviously a focus for the Chinese Communist Party to have that many hospitals specializing in organ transplants.
2,000 to 3,000. Rick, I want to show you something as well. I've got so much to show you. It's unbelievable. The Laogao system, 252 concentration camps set up specifically to house Falun Gong practitioners, forcefully blood test them for a match. That all you need is a police signature, no judicial process, no legislative, judicial, or executive branches. And then once the buyer, a rich foreign buyer from Pakistan, the US, Canada, wherever you are, and others, could be the medical associations, the biotech firms, anyway, want that organ, then the doctors are turned into murderers and start cutting away. Just like Dr. Invertorti did, was forced, saying that the execution ground goes into the surgery room, and into the theater. And so to have, let me share with you, if I may. It's unbelievable, Rick. It's unbelievable. Let me see.
As we're getting towards the end here too, I want to tell people to follow you because there's way more information. We've just barely scratched the surface, haven't we?
I tell you.
Yeah, your website is stoporganharvesting.org, right?
Yes. I advocate for the website, yes, and also endtransplantabuse.org, and this one particularly, faluninfo.net.
Faluninfo.net. And you're active on Twitter at truthseeker077, right?
That's it. I'm shadow banned, but I have that.
Welcome to the club.
Yes. We have one more time to just share one more video.
Please, yeah, absolutely. While you were looking, I just wanted to tell people where to find you. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Let me share one more thing with you. Because we can go on for hours talking about this, but I'm sure your listeners and your viewers will be enthralled about this.
Yeah, there comes a point, and this is with anything that I've noticed too, is because this was a fire hose of information today, and it's stuff that's very shocking, right? And that's why even something like this, maybe if we can come back for a part 2 at some point too, I would love to have you back on. But this is like a life tip, because when you're fire hosed with a lot of information, you need to take it in chunks, because now I would love everyone just to soak in and then do their own seeking and find, look you up and look at your information. So that's your homework assignment, everybody that's listening. You know how much I love homework. I hate homework, but this is something that matters. So please go look at all of Mitchell's site, follow him, even though he's shadow banned right now, follow him and get all the information you possibly can on this if you care. Because if you care, you're going to want to seek.
Absolutely. Imagine it was your families, ladies and gentlemen, that were just harvested alive. You never saw them again. And I know it doesn't concern you until it does concern you, until it's your interest. But just be aware. That's all I'm asking, for you to tune in, for you to share about this, for you to just expose this even more. Even people who are listening, who are teachers, share this with your classes. It's so important, because awareness is so important, and to fail to expose what is good and to fail to stand up for what is right is unacceptable, truly, in human dignity and duty. But here we go. One more clip for you guys.
Yep.
This is the Human Rights Council. From the China Tribunal.
Mr. Vice President, the Durban Declaration affirms the urgent need to prevent, combat, and eliminate all forms of trafficking in persons, including organ trafficking. China Tribunal, a people's tribunal chaired by Sir Geoffrey Nice, considered all available evidence and concluded that forced organ harvesting from prisoners of conscience, including the religious and ethnic minorities of Falun Gong and Uyghurs, had been committed for years throughout China on a significant scale, and that it continues today. This involves hundreds of thousands of victims. Acting on independent legal advice, the tribunal concluded that commission of crimes against humanity against Falun Gong and Uyghurs had been proved beyond reasonable doubt, victim for victim, and death for death. Cutting out the hearts and other organs from living, blameless, harmless, peaceable people constitutes one of the worst mass atrocities of this century. Organ transplantation to save life is a scientific and social triumph, but killing the donor is criminal. Government and international bodies must do their duty not only in regard to the possible charge of genocide, but also in regard to crimes against humanity, which the tribunal does not consider to be less heinous. It is the legal obligation of UN member states and the duty of this council to address this criminal conduct. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
But hey, thank you so much for sharing, man. I tell you, it's
Mitchell, thank you for being on, brother. I appreciate that, and I like when it says that it is our duty too, because I feel that that's the case. So let's do what we need to, because this is just human life. I don't care what country you're from; it's human life.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And you've done a great service to humanity, allowing me to share about the Falun Gong. And one more thing before I forget, if anyone wants to learn about the Falun Gong exercises, or also known as the Falun Dafa exercises, faluninfo.net. You can check out all the videos. Everything is free of charge. It's not cultish, it's not religious. It's just a beautiful spiritual movement that just rocks the groove, man, makes you feel good and betters your life. So, man, Rick, you're a legend, brother.
Thank you, brother.
Ryan, a legend. Lisa, a legend. And Ashley, hopefully one day I'll meet her. But we'll do a part 2 anytime you want to do it. Just let everyone reach out to me and I'll do it with you.
Sounds good, brother. Thank you so much.
Take care, brother.